Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our special meeting on Jackie Robinson. And I thought this was a very interesting topic. I was watching the MLB network and they mentioned Ron and his relationship with Jackie. And that right there just told me this is an interesting story and it's a different way of learning about Jackie Robinson. So uh, thanks to Wally, who knew a Rabinovitz in Sheboygan yet, who had contact with Ron, and he hooked up with us, and we were able to put this together. So, Ron, thank you for joining us this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you bet.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. So let me do some quick intros here, and then we can get into this. Before I for tonight's meeting, can we hold off any questions until after Ron's done with his presentation? If you want, add them into the chat ahead of time, and then after Ron gets through his presentation, we'll do. I'll leave the mics open. We can just ask questions at that time or put them in chat, and I'll monitor that as well. Little intro. I mostly stole this off of your website, Ron. Ron Rabinovitz was an 8-year-old when he first met his hero, Jackie Robinson, at a Braves Brooklyn Dodgers game in Milwaukee in 1953. Jackie and Ron maintained a one-on-one close relationship and friendship from that time on. This is an 8-year-old kid from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Nice. His story is of a kid, his larger-than-life hero, and the lessons he learned of dreams coming true, mutual respect, and paying it forward. It's a beautiful story of friendship between a baseball legend and a boy. Ron shares the poignant, emotional, and heartfelt letters that provide a unique insight to Jackie Robinson's soul. Speaking of Wally, Wally has helped us set this up. Welcome, Wally. I don't know, I think I might have you covered now. I'll get you there. Ron has shared this amazing story with corporations, business organizations, school children throughout America. As I mentioned, the MLB Network documentary, Letters from Jackie, when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's what really, I never heard of it before then. So that is what planted the seed. The National Baseball Hall of Fame, USA Today, CBS Evening News, ESPN, NPR. He's been in newspapers from Minneapolis Star Tribune, Chicago Sun-Times, LA Times. So his story has been told all over. And I understand a play was written by an Oscar-winning author, Eric Simonson.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Have we ever had anybody on one of our Zoomcasts that had a play written about them? I think we have a first here. So to get started, I always like to start with a ice-breaking question. I think everybody on here knows what the question is. So, but I'll ask it unless someone wants to jump in and beat me to it. But Ron, what was your earliest baseball memory?
Well, in 1953, my Dodger, I grew up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I live in Minneapolis now. My father loved the Dodgers because they signed Jackie Robinson to play Major League Baseball in 1947. And he used to tell me stories about him. And he said to me one day, he said, "Boy, how would you like to meet him someday?" I said, "Boy, would I love that." Well, unbeknownst to me, he wrote Jackie a letter. He didn't tell me about it because he wanted me he didn't want me disappointed in case Jackie didn't respond. And I came home from school one day, and laying face down on my bed was an envelope. The back of it said, "Jackie Robinson." I said, "Oh my God." I went to the kitchen, showed my mother. Then I called my dad at his office. And it was a little note from Jackie with an autographed picture. And he said, "Next time the club's in Milwaukee playing the Braves, he would love to meet me." At that time, the Atlanta Braves were the Milwaukee Braves. So we went to a Dodger Brave game. And it was the first baseball game I was ever at that I couldn't wait for it to end. Because I had a feeling that right after I was done with the game, we were going to meet Jackie. So We went down to the locker room and waited for him to come out. And when he came out, I ran up to him with about 50 other kids who were looking for autographs. And I said, Jackie, I'm Ronnie Rabinovitz. Do you remember me? He said, sure I do. And my dad standing over my shoulder, he said, sure, Jackie, with the thousands of letters you get, how would you remember? He said, no, I remember your dad wrote me on lawyer stationery. My father was an attorney. And from that time on, he said to me, stay in touch. And I said, my God, he wants to hear from me. So I wrote him a letter, Jackie Robinson, Stamford, Connecticut, no address, no zip code, he got it. He wrote a letter to me, Ronnie Rabinovitz, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, no address, no zip code, I got it. And we were friends. I would write to him, he'd write back to me. I have probably 20 handwritten letters from Jackie. We had lunches and dinners many times in Milwaukee. We stayed at the Schrader Hotel where the Dodgers stayed at the time. And so we had breakfast with him or lunch with him or sometimes dinner. In 1955, it was September, it was my birthday. And we were at the game with Jackie, and he hit a home run, and as he was rounding 30, waved to me like, that one was for you. And that night he got in our car and he drove with us to a restaurant in downtown Milwaukee to celebrate my birthday. So I had Jackie Robinson singing happy birthday to me. It was probably the best birthday I ever had in my whole life. He was such a great guy. You know, one time he came out of the locker room and the team was getting on the bus to go back to the hotel because the series wasn't done yet. So I'm walking with him and he's signing a couple kids' autographs. The guys are getting on the bus. And here comes a priest with a whole parish full of kids, and they all want autographs. So he starts signing and signing, and pretty soon the guys on the bus are opening the windows. Come on, Jackie, you're holding us up. You know what he did? He went to the bus driver and he said, you know what? Take the guys back to the hotel, I'll take a cab. And he stood there and he signed every kid's autograph. It was just amazing. That's the type of guy he was. Of course, he didn't have to take a cab. We gave him a ride back to the hotel. And you know, it's amazing when a kid gets anxious, you know, before a game starts. I mean, after a game is over, you're waiting for the players to come out. And it takes 45 minutes to an hour. So we're watching the door, and there was a big sign on the door. It said, warning, trespassing, do not enter. You could go to jail, and there was this legal jargon. And we used to read that over and over and over just to kill time. And then we'd watch that door handle, and if it turned, we knew someone was coming out. So one day he came out of the locker room and he said, come here. And he took me by the hand and he took me into the locker room. And the first thing I said is, oh my God, I'm going to jail. And then I realized I was with Jackie, and he said, no, you don't have to worry, you're with me. He took a brand new ball out of a bag and he took me from locker to locker to locker. All my heroes, Don Newcomb, Pee Wee Reese, Roy Campanella, Gil Hodges, Carl Furillo, Sandy Koufax was a rookie that year. They shook my hand, they were patting me on the back, and he was so busy getting autographs for me that he forgot to sign the ball himself, but I got many other autographs from him. He was certainly quite a guy. It was exciting. You know, I saw prejudice, certainly not in the degree that he did, but we were in Milwaukee one time at a game. Jackie was a real competitor. He loved to win. And this particular day, he had struck out 4 times. And the 4th time he struck out, in disgust, he kind of flung his bat back toward the dugout. And unfortunately, the bat sailed on him, hit the top of the dugout and went into the stands. And this woman claimed that she was hit by the bat. He felt terrible. He took a cab to her house that night, to apologize in person. She didn't want anything to do with it. She was getting a lawyer and she was going to start a lawsuit. So we got back to Sheboygan, the phone rang, it was Jackie. And he said, Ronnie, let me talk to your dad. And he told him what happened. And my dad said, let me see what I can do for you. It turned out that the lawyer that she had hired was a dear friend of my dad's. And it turned out that the bat never hit her. It hit the railing in front of her seat, but it never touched her. And because of all of this, everything was dropped. And I thought, how terrible that someone would want to do that to him. Jackie used to play second base or third base. This particular day, he was playing left field. And a line drive went by him, rolled past him, and went all the way to the wall. He missed it. That night, we had dinner, and I said, Jackie, that was a tough play. He says, tough heck, he said. Sandy Ambrose would have had it. Sandy Ambrose was a rookie left fielder. He was fast and he's young. And he said, Ronnie, I'm going to tell you a secret that no one else knows except my own family. He said, I think next year is going to be my last year in baseball. And after the 1956 season, Jackie did retire. And I cried and I thought, oh my God, I'll never see him again. I wrote to him and he said that his own son, Jackie Jr., was crying. And he assured both of us that everything would be okay. And it turned out it was okay because he did come back to Wisconsin many times for sports banquets. He was very active for an organization called the National Conference of Christians and Jews. And he came back for other events and he would let us know when he's coming. And we would spend the afternoon with him or the evening, or in some cases, the entire weekend. And he was such a great guy. One time he came in he'd spoken in Birmingham, Alabama, and he was flying back to Milwaukee to meet us. So after he was done with his speech in Birmingham, he went to the airport. There was a big sign on the waiting room said, whites only. And he sat down and the police came there and they were going to arrest him. And then they found out he was Jackie Robinson. They left him alone. But when he got off the plane in Milwaukee, he was quite disturbed. And he said, Ronnie, if my name would have been Paul Jones or John Smith or anybody else, I'd have been in jail today because of the color of my skin. He said, those are things we have to change. One time he was coming to Manitowoc, Wisconsin to speak. And we had made arrangements that he was going to stay overnight in our home. And he was going to speak to my high school the following morning. And a couple of weeks before that, my dad and I were on the front lawn playing catch. And a neighbor came by. And my dad told the neighbor that Jackie was going to be staying at our house. And he says, you mean to tell me you'd let Jackie Robinson stay at your house? And he said, of course I would. I'd love it. I'd like to have him build a house next to me. And the neighbor said, boy, I sure didn't want that. My dad looked him straight in the eye and he said, you know, Ben, he said, I don't think that would be the real question. I think the real question would be whether Jackie Robinson would want to live next to you. And he really told him. So anyhow, we got to Manitowoc, and unfortunately, he had to go back to New York on business. Something came up that he had to really take care of. So he couldn't come. So I was so disappointed, and he was disappointed. He was presented this big wrought iron key, a key to the city of Manitowoc, with red, white, and blue ribbons on it. As we're taking him back to the airport, I'm sitting in the back seat with him, and that key is laying on his lap, and he turns to me and he said, Ronnie, will you keep this for me? And of course I did. And then we got back to Sheboygan, and my dad had to stop at his law office to pick up some books and some files. And someone had spray painted a sign on the front of the office door, the front of office window, on the building, it said Rabinovitz is bringing niggers to Sheboygan. And I started to cry. I got out of the car, my dad, my sister, my mother, and I, and we got some brushes and soap and water, washed it all down. But I was just sick from that. I just thought it was just terrible. I have a couple of copies of letters that he sent to me, and I would love to read a couple excerpts with you. This was after he retired from baseball. He went to work for a company called Chock-full of Nuts. Chock-full of Nuts in New York was a coffee company, and they also had coffee shops throughout the New York area, kind of like a Starbucks. So here he writes to me, "Dear Ronnie, it was good hearing from you again. I hope everything continues to go well at home. My family is fine, and we have had a nice summer, and with school just around the corner, we're getting prepared. You're very kind to say the nice things you did. I learned a long time ago that a person must be true to himself if he is to succeed. He must be willing to stand by his principles, even at the possible loss of prestige. He must first learn to live with himself before he can hope to live with others. I have been fortunate. God has been good to me, and I intend to work as hard as I can to repay all the things people have done for me. I appreciate your friendship and feel as long as you set a worthwhile goal and head for it, you will do well. Continued good luck. Give my regards to the family. Always, Jackie." This was another letter. I invited him to my bar mitzvah, but he couldn't come. He says, "Dear Ronnie, I'm happy to hear that everything went well at your bar mitzvah. My schedule has been so busy, I've not been able to keep up with my outside responsibilities. Ronnie, one of the nice things that pleases me most is that our friendship continues, even though I am no longer connected with baseball. It is friends like you that have made me feel that everything that happened was worthwhile. I hope we do get a chance to see each other soon. It seems when people are as far apart as we are, they have a tendency to forget. I hope we don't. My regards to the family. I hope everything continues to go well. Always, Jackie." Every letter he ended with "always, Jackie." So I recently wrote a children's book, and it's entitled "Always, Jackie." It's turned out to be a great book. Amazon selected it as the best nonfiction children's book for the year, which I thought was really great. Was terrific. And I have some other stories I'd like to share with you too. One time I was out in the playground playing with some of my friends. I was in second grade, and this boy said to me he can't play with me anymore. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're Jewish." And that night I went home, I cried. I was really devastated. And my father went to his parents' home to speak to them. I don't know what was said, I wasn't there, but the next day we were able to play together again. And we became the best of friends. And his parents got to know me, and they loved me, and I loved them. And it was just ignorance. They had never met an African American. I had never met a Jewish person. And we were friends. My friend Johnny just passed away about 3 months ago, but we were friends all the way up until that time. And I actually took him to Milwaukee to meet Jackie Robinson. And it turned out that it was his friend too. It was his hero. I want to show you a couple pictures here now. I don't know if you can see this. That's me in a white t-shirt with Jackie on the field, and my sister and another friend. This is a picture of me with Jackie and my friend Johnny right to Jackie's right, and another friend of mine. This was my 10th birthday party, and Jackie was there, as I told you. Here's another picture from that birthday party. You can see that. And one more here. There were two girls that came over for an autograph to talk to Jackie. And then Jackie wrote on the back of the menu, which reads, Ronnie, it was very nice having dinner with you and your family. I hope we are able to do it again soon, Jackie Robinson. And then here is a picture from Manitowoc with my dad, my sister, and Jackie. And this was a telegram he sent me when I graduated from high school. Congratulations, sorry to have delayed message, have been out of the city. I'm always proud of your achievements. Continued good luck, Jackie Robinson. Now, as I got older, we didn't write as much, but we would call each other. I called him, he gave me his unlisted phone number in Stamford, Connecticut. And I'd call him every once in a while. I was never a pest, but I would call him. And when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown in 1962, as the first African-American to have been inducted into the Hall of Fame, I called him that night and he kind of chuckled. He said, I thought I'd hear from you. And I congratulated him and told him how proud I was of him. And we talked for a while. He was glad to hear from me. You know, mine is an amazing story. I had a fella say to me once, yours is a story that only happens in dreams. And I think that's right. I was very lucky. You know, a legacy doesn't just happen. The legacy of Jackie Robinson becomes more clear the more we talk about it. Just imagine in 1946, there were 400 Major League white players. On April 15th, 1947, there were 399 white players and one black. Just imagine the guts, the courage, the dedication, and the horrific abuse this man took because he wanted to play baseball. You talk about bullying. Jackie was bullied firsthand. They used to throw balls at his head. And in those days, there were no batting helmets. They just wear a baseball cap. They tried to spike him, or they did spike him actually. They threw black cats on the field, all kinds of things. He couldn't sleep with his team in the hotel. He couldn't eat with his team in the restaurants. It was just terrible, you know. And to be a rookie at 28, he was a rookie at 28. Most rookies are 18, 19, or 20. And the pressure to make the team, first of all, and then to have all these obstacles against him. It was just amazing how he pursued. I don't know if any of you saw the movie 42. However, it's a great depiction of the 1947 season. And there's a tremendous amount of abuse in there. However, I remember that it was probably 100 times worse than that, than what they showed. You know, he was a real hero. He never drank, he never smoked, he never took drugs, and he never refused to sign a kid's autograph. I've often said, they say Babe Ruth changed baseball. Jackie Robinson changed America, and he did it alone. And people have asked me, how did he pick me? And I don't know, really. We were so different. I was white, he was black. I was Jewish, he was Christian. I was a kid, he was an adult. I was from a little town in the Midwest. He was from a big city out east. And yet there was this bond of friendship and love. And it was just amazing. In 1987, I heard that Major League Baseball was going to honor Jackie on the 40th anniversary of his breaking the color line. And I wanted to be part of it in some way, and I didn't know quite how. So I called Major League Baseball in New York, and I got passed over from one person to the next to the next. I ended up talking to a producer of the game of the week. If you recall, there used to be a game of the week on Saturday afternoons. And he had a half-hour show before that game. And I sent him a couple of copies for authenticity, and he just thought this was amazing. He said, unfortunately, my half-hour show is 18 minutes with commercials. He says, I've got Rachel Robinson, Don Newcomb, Pee Wee Reese, and Roy Campanella. Your story would get lost. And I said, I'm not looking for any money. I'm not looking for any fame. Where should I go? And he said, I just hung up with a reporter from the Chicago Sun-Times. Give him a call. I called him. He called me back. We spoke for an hour on the phone. He ended up flying to Minneapolis and spent the whole day with me and my family. As I'm driving him back to the airport, I said, Brian, how big of an article do you think this will be? And he said, well, the Sun-Times is like a tabloid, like a magazine type format. And he said, probably 2 pages. Well, it came out that Sunday. It was a 4-page story. And he won an award from the AP as the best public interest story of 1987. And then the Minneapolis Star and Tribune called, and they wanted to do a story. And then I got a call from the school. Would I come in and speak? I said, I'd love to. So I go into this classroom and I said, all right, kids, how many ever heard of Jackie Robinson? And this little boy stands up, raises his hand, and he says, no, who is she? And I said, who is she? And I realized, how would they know? So at that point in time, I became like a Pied Piper. And I've been telling that story about Jackie and I ever since then, to organizations, to companies, schools, clubs, so many places, corporations. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it all those years. Now, 1997, it was the 50th anniversary of Jackie breaking the color line. And the twins had invited Rachel Robinson, that's Jackie's widow, to Minneapolis. She had started the year after he passed away. She started the Jackie Robinson Foundation, which was a college scholarship program for children of color and minorities to go to college. They have the greatest graduation rate of any scholarship program in the United States, 98%. And Jackie would have been so proud because education was so important to him, and used to encourage me and others to stay in school. I had never met Rachel, and the twins were presenting a check to the foundation for $50,000, and there was a press conference at the Metrodome. And I was invited there. And after the press conference, I went up to her and I said, Rachel, I'm Ronnie Rabinovitz. And she said, oh my God, you're Ronnie Rabinovitz. And she hugged and kissed me. And she said, Jack loved you so much. And I showed her all the pictures and letters, and she was just thrilled. That night, she threw out the first pitch at the ball game, and then she came up in one of the box suites and sat with me for about 5 innings. And it was just terrific. She's an amazing lady. She's still alive, God bless her. She's 98 years old, and she's going strong. So, you know, and I focus a lot about what Jackie did after baseball, because he was so instrumental in the there was no civil rights movement at that point in time. There was no Martin Luther King. There was no Rosa Parks. It was Jackie all alone. Matter of fact, I was in Los Angeles about 4 years ago. Larry King flew me out there for an interview. And he was telling me that the first time he interviewed Martin Luther King, he introduced him as the founder of the civil rights movement. And Martin Luther King stopped him and said, "Larry, I have to correct you. I'm not the founder. Jackie Robinson was," which I thought was very cool. Very cool. So, he used to go down to the South and help rebuild churches that were burned to the ground. He started a bank in Harlem called the Freedom National Bank for African Americans, because some of the other financial institutions elevated their interest rates to African Americans. He built homes for African Americans. So he did so many things. He was just an amazing guy. So pretty much that's my story. And I love telling it. He was, in 1972, he was honored at the World Series in Cincinnati on the 25th anniversary of his breaking the color line. And he said, "Thank you very much. I appreciate this honor, but I won't be happy until I see a black face as a manager in baseball or an African-American general manager." And then in 2009, January 20th, I wrote an article that said, "I wonder what Jackie would be thinking today when we inaugurated our first African-American president." And I know that when he was campaigning, a lot of the reporters were referring to Barack Obama as the Jackie Robinson of politics, but it was just amazing. So that's my story. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll be happy to.
Ron, that's amazing. Yeah, a great round of applause there. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you so much.
Your book, as I mentioned, several conversations we've had over the last month or two, I sent it to my granddaughters, and I have a granddaughter who's in second grade who I read with every Friday. So I said, "Can we read that book?" And she read it to me, and it was a fun book. Your name caused some problems. A couple extra vowels or two in there. It took a while to teach her how to say Rabinovitz.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, we got a text from her mother today, and there's a series of Who Is, a children's book, and she wants the Jackie Robinson version of that for her birthday in June. So,
wonderful! Isn't that great?
Yeah. So your book made it.
Very pleased.
Yeah. So your book made a difference. So thank you for that. Great. Questions, everybody?
Anybody have questions?
Ron, this is Wally Thiel. I'm from Sheboygan too.
Hey, Wally, how you doing?
All right, you?
Good, good. You still live in Sheboygan?
No, I live in Presque Isle, Wisconsin, way up north.
Okay.
But we're not too distant in years apart, so we have mutual acquaintances, I know. But I'm wondering, in your conversations with Jackie Robinson, being from Sheboygan, you probably recollect that we had some black players with a handful that played with the Sheboygan Indians. John Roseborough, for example.
Johnny Roseborough, right.
Did you ever, in your conversations with Jackie, did you ever talk about the connections to minor league baseball in Sheboygan and specifically people like Johnny Roseborough?
Yes, I did. And there was a sporting goods store, if you remember, downtown. Joe Hauser. Joe Hauser. Yeah. I love Joe. I used to be so jealous because he'd always go down to spring training in Vero Beach to the Dodgers. When he'd come back, I'd go to the store and we'd sit there for hours talking baseball. He'd tell me, "Oh, Jackie said hello to you," and things like that. He was quite a ball player himself.
Yes, he was. Did Jackie know John Roseborough?
Yes, he did. I think he did. I know they were different ages, Jackie had retired in 1956, but he did mention to me that he did know Johnny Roseborough.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did he ever get to Sheboygan at all?
No, he never did. The closest was Manitowoc and of course Milwaukee.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions?
Ron, thanks for your presentation. That was just wonderful. I'm looking forward to looking for the children's book.
Okay.
When was your last visit with Jack?
Well, I moved to Minneapolis in 1966, and I became a clothing salesman. I sold children's clothing. I was a manufacturer's rep, and I traveled all over the Midwest for 25 years. So I'd get to New York a lot, and every time I'd get to New York, the first thing I'd do is pick up the phone and call Jackie. And many times we'd have lunch. Sometimes if he was too busy, we'd just talk on the phone. And I was with him about 6 months before he passed away. We had lunch in New York, and he got out of that cab and he was in rough shape. It shocked me. You know, he had had a heart attack. He suffered from diabetes, and he was blind in one eye and going blind in the other eye. And I had to take him by the arm and help him into this restaurant. And I felt so bad because I remembered seeing him dancing up and down the base paths, driving those pictures crazy. And he was so happy to see me. He wanted to hear all about my family, and I, of course, about his. And afterwards, I hailed him a cab, and I got him settled in the cab. And I leaned in, I kissed him on the cheek and told him how much I loved him. As that cab disappeared into space, I had tears running down my cheeks because I knew I'd probably never see him again. And I didn't. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, absolutely. Any other questions?
Yes. Howard Lula from St. Louis Park. Great to have you along, Ron.
Howard,
Yes,
how are you? Live in St. Louis Park,
yes,
Minnesota?
right.
So do I.
Great.
I live in St. Louis Park too.
Yes. Great presentation, by the way. And here's a question for you. Your thoughts on baseball, remembering Jackie Robinson's legacy every April 15th by every major league player wearing the number 42.
That's great. Yes. What was your question, Howard?
Yes. Your thoughts on Jackie Robinson Day every year.
Oh,
When
well,
every
I'm
major
always involved every year at Target Field for the Twins. I'm always invited there on April 15th. I think it's wonderful. It gives me a great pride that everybody's remembering him by wearing his number that particular day. All ball players, coaches, managers, umpires, everybody. And to me, I was just thrilled when that happened. I'll be at Target Field on Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So. I
Now
also
I know why we
work
couldn't
part-time.
book you. Now I know we couldn't book you.
Part-time for the Minnesota Twins. And they have a lot of tour groups that go through Target Field, through the stadium. And I do a presentation for the kids and the teachers. About 25 times a year, I'm there talking to students and teachers. Although this past year with the COVID, it was down, but it's starting to pick up again. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
Hi, Mike.
Real quick, do you think there were other fans like yourself that got to know Jackie when they were kids? I find that
I asked
fascinating.
Rachel about that one time, and she said that he would write occasionally to other kids, but never to this extent. Never. You know what he used to do? He'd come out of the locker room in Ebbets Field in Brooklyn, and kids would have written a self-addressed postcard, and they would hand them to him. And he would take them home, and he would write the kids a little note and then put them in the mail. I mean, who does that, you know? That was terrific.
Exactly.
but she said she'd never seen anything like this.
Well, a great story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ron, you grew up in Wisconsin, and we have a number of members on here that I know are very active in the Milwaukee Braves Historical Association.
Okay.
How did you root for the Milwaukee Braves at all back in those days, or you were such a Dodger
Hell no,
fan?
I was a Dodger fan through and through.
Mm.
Matter of fact, I hated Hank Aaron. I love him now, but I hated him because he'd always beat the Dodgers, you know. He was so good. But no, I was always a Dodger fan. Just like I like the Twins too, but if the Twins are playing the Dodgers, there's no question it's the Dodgers to this day. I got a cute baseball story for you guys. So Abe and Sam were the best friends. They'd been friends for almost 70 years. Loved baseball. Played when they were kids, follow all the team statistics and everything. So Abe's in the hospital dying. So Sam comes to visit him. He says, Abe, he says, you know, you and I, we've been buddies for almost 70 years. You got to do me a favor when you get up there. You got to somehow let me know if they have baseball up there. Because if they don't have baseball up there, I'm not interested. So Abe passes away, and about 3 weeks later, Sam is sound asleep. 3 o'clock in the morning, he hears, Sam. He opens his eyes. He looks all around the room. He says, yeah, he says, it's Abe. He says, hi, Abe. He says, Sam, I have good news for you and bad news. He said, well, what's the good news? He says, baseball, you wouldn't believe. The most beautiful manicured diamonds you've ever seen. Fans like crazy. I'm playing third base. I'm batting .395. He says, that's fabulous. He says, so what's the bad news? He says, you're pitching on Tuesday. Isn't that cute?
Mhm.
Hey, one more quick question on the movie of 42. Did you like the first one or the second one better?
What's that?
On the Jackie Robinson movie, because they had that original one that he starred in, and then they
He
did.
starred in, yes, yeah.
Which did you prefer, if you have to choose?
I think the second one was better.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Although I love the both. You know, it was just amazing. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah, because how many ball players could be in a movie and do their own movie? He was pretty good in that.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he played himself in that first movie. Yeah. Any other questions?
Ron, you mentioned that you had that autographed baseball that from your birthday going around there. Do you still have any of those?
I still have that ball. Yeah,
Nice.
it's all locked up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the letters are all locked up, the originals, in a safe deposit box. But I have copies here that I show to people. And
Yeah.
But it's been quite a journey, I'll tell you, and it's been very exciting. When I started this, I always just thought that, you know, I would tell this story to kids, but it's grown. And now in 2007, the USA Today did a big story, a front page story in their sports section about Jackie and I. Then it became, before it was a local story, then it became a huge story. And I got calls from Canada, from Florida, Texas, Alabama, you know, all over the country. And it was just amazing. Then I got invited to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. They were going to fly me out there. And I always wanted to go there, and to be their guest was just amazing. So I spoke there at the Hall of Fame twice, as a matter of fact. I've been there. And they took me down in the basement. It's an archives place that's not open to the public. And I held Babe Ruth's bat, and I held Jackie's uniform. It was really thrilling. So the Dodgers got two ball players that I absolutely loved. Juan Pierre and Orlando Hudson. And Orlando Hudson, and they both love Jackie. Orlando Hudson said, not only am I playing baseball for the Dodgers, like Jackie did, but I'm playing second base like he did. So I wanted to meet both these guys. So I made arrangements with the Dodgers, and the Dodgers came to Milwaukee to play the Brewers. And I was invited on the field during batting practice. And those two guys came over and they just flipped. They just loved this story. And then this woman comes by and she says, "What's going on? What's all this commotion?" And she turned out to be a producer for the MLB network. So I showed her all this stuff and we stayed in touch. And she called me one day and she said, "Our people love the story. We want to do a story about you and Jackie." I said, "My God, that'd be terrific." So they had Curtis Granderson was the host, and Dennis Haysbert. I don't know if you know that name, but Dennis Haysbert is an actor and a beautiful, deep voice. He does the Allstate commercials, and he's been on television. He read the letters off camera, and it was actually nominated for an Emmy. So it turned out it was called the Letters from Jackie. And then I get a call from the History Theater in St. Paul, and they wanted to do a play. And they hired this big playwright from Los Angeles. His name is Eric Simonson. I think he lives in Wisconsin now. And he wrote the big Broadway hit Lombardi. And he wrote this play, and they had a kid, 13-year-old kid playing me, somebody playing my dad, my mom, Jackie Robinson. Jack Kennedy was in the play because my dad was very, very close friends with Jack Kennedy. Matter of fact, Jack and Bobby stayed at our home one time, and they were very close friends. And that, to sit in that audience, it was almost surreal to hear this kid say, "Hi, I'm Ronnie Rabinovitz. I'm from Sheboygan, Wisconsin." You know, it was pretty exciting. Then there's a newspaper online called The Week. They did an interview with me, and then I got a call from Larry King's office. He wants me to come out there and do an interview. So all these things have happened by accident. My book was published by a publisher in Mankato, Minnesota, called Creative Editions. They do a lot of beautiful children's books. And so the whole thing has been so thrilling and wonderful and gratifying to me to meet all these wonderful people. Any other questions?
Yeah, Ron, maybe not a question, more of a comment/question, but you mentioned Juan Pierre
Yes,
earlier, and then he played in the Northwoods Leagues and played for the team out of Manitowoc. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that. No,
There's
no.
a connection there. There's a team called the Manitowoc Skunks.
Okay, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Huh.
he won the batting title in 1996 for Manitowoc.
Wow, no kidding.
So there's a connection there with him in Wisconsin. I wasn't sure if you were aware of or cared about, but
No, I had never heard of that. Corky, where are you from?
Rochester, Minnesota,
Oh,
home
you're
of the
a neighbor.
Huckers, who were in the Northwoods League as well. But
You're a neighbor. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think I have to get up my Madison Mallard stuff right now to kind of counter you there, Corky. Sorry.
That's great. No, Jackie had 3 kids. Jackie Jr. was the oldest. He was about a year or 2 younger than I was, but we had a lot of similarities. He was playing Little League ball. I was playing Little League ball. He was going to camp. I was going to camp. And he played baseball, and he wasn't that great an athlete. And some of the adults would say, "Ah, you're okay, kid, but you're sure not as good as your old man." And he wasn't a great athlete. He ended up going to Vietnam. When he came back, he had a heroin addiction. And Jackie Robinson was on Governor Nelson Rockefeller's commission against firearms and drugs. And here his own son was arrested with a packet of heroin and a firearm. And he said, "I don't know how I could have been an influence to any other kids when I wasn't an influence to my own." And Jackie Jr. ended up going to a treatment program, and that's where he found his niche in life. And he became a counselor at that program. And there were these glowing letters from all these addicts that said, "We owe our life to Jackie. If he wasn't there, we don't know what we would have done." And one night he was driving home alone, and he was killed in a one-car accident. There was no drugs or no alcohol in his system. And to have a son, to lose him to drugs, to regain him and then lose him permanently, it was just too much. Jackie Jr. died in 1971, and his dad the following year, 1972. And then Sharon Robinson is his only daughter. She works for Major League Baseball. She's vice president of education. And she goes around the country speaking about her dad like I do. And then David Robinson, their younger son, he lives in Tanzania in Africa. And he started a coffee farm. And he got all these jobs for all these people to grow coffee. So each one in their own right has given back to their countries and their world. A wonderful family.
Terrific. Mike Carey just sent on the chat a site for the, just put it up, Jackie and the Kid. So that's out there. I will include that in the newsletter. We'll have a recording of this in the newsletter as well. I will include a copy of the where you can find the book. So they'll put that in the article as well, and that sort of thing. So
you can order it through Amazon.
Yeah.
It's called Always Jackie.
Right.
And if anybody wants to sign a copy, I'll be happy to sign them.
Okay, yeah. So good. We've got about 3 minutes left, 4 minutes left. So before there's any other questions, first I want to say thank you, Ron. Before we have to jump off, we have to jump off quick. One of the things that I found with our chapter is we love stories.
Yeah.
You're a wonderful storyteller with a great story. I think when you said this was everybody's dream, oh, I can't imagine that. I can't even phantom this having happened to me. So this is just fabulous. So thank you very much for sharing that information.
Thank you. Thanks all of you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
Yep.
Okay.
And just a reminder, we're having another meeting next Tuesday night on Larry Baldessaro's new book on Tony Lazzari. And so watch for that too. There'll be a reminder email going out on that. So any final questions for Ron or last words of wisdom from Ron?
I guess I got a question for you, Dennis. When you send out the email with the link to the recording, is that something we could share via social media, or is that strictly for SABR?
I wonder if Jacob's still on here. I don't know. Jacob, did you hear that question? If you could hop on.
Yes, and feel free to share any of the video recordings. That's why we make them available for people to learn about what's happening in these meetings and hopefully join and come to one of the next ones.
Yeah. And when Jacob puts that out there live in the next couple of days, Ron, I will send it to you as soon as we get it. So.
Would you? Yeah, I'd appreciate a copy of this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then also the next newsletter, I'll copy you in on that as well, so you see the.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, you betcha.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Where do you live, Dennis?
I'm down in Sun City, Arizona now.
Oh, nice, warm. Nice
Yeah.
and warm.
Yeah, we decided to escape winter and COVID. We had too many grandkids who were not doing the right thing with COVID, so we tried to get away from them to try and stay alive and try and avoid winter. Although we're missing those kids now. So
How many grandkids you got?
now it's 6.
Wonderful. I
Yeah.
got 10. They all live in the Twin Cities, which is nice.
Well, that is nice. So I agree. Okay, everybody.
Okay.
If nothing
Thank you
else,
all.
thank you, everybody. Again, thank you, Ron.
My pleasure.
It was a
Thank
great.
you, Ron. Dennis, thanks to you too
Oh,
for the great newsletter.
yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. If you ever have something you want to include in, let me know, Tim. Take care. I'll sign us off now, guys.
Okay.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Hi, Dennis.
See ya.
Bye.